what you're seeing here in front of you to start is a sample invoice. Now, a couple of things that you want to take notice in this invoice. One is we have, of course, who we're billing the invoice to, where it's being shipped to, and then additional information such as the invoice ID, date, the balance. We also, within the invoice, have our item, which is multi-lined, as you'll notice. So standard OCR has always traditionally read left to right. It doesn't really have the intelligence or the context to read multi-lined. However, the item is listed as a multi-lined item here. Now, we also have additional information such as the quantity of items purchased, the rate, and the amount. Now, if you are a user who wants to be able to not only use AdLib to transform these documents, as we've been doing for many years, but now unlock the information hidden behind these documents, such as some of the attributes that I just went over, with our new data extraction power, we have the ability to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this invoice. And what I'm going to do is submit it into my input folder here. And this input folder is constantly polling for incoming documents. And when those documents are submitted, it will convert these documents, OCR them, and then do the extraction. So if I refresh my job status table, you'll see that that document has now been picked up for processing. And while that's processing, we can take a look at how it all works under the covers. Here in our new extraction settings interface, we have the ability to define a template and then what you actually want to specify within the output. A template, you can think of it as more of the higher level processing logic. So in this case, this template is saying when you receive a document in the folder, like the one I just submitted, we want to take the OCR text and extract attributes from that text. Now, what those attributes actually are going to be are not defined in this step. That's what you define in the next page I show you, which is where you're actually defining the outputs that you want out of your document. But here you're sort of feeding it the logic and the persona staging to say, you are going to help me pull from particular documents. And when you read these documents, I'm going to provide a list of attributes per document that I want you to pull out. And I want you to provide that back to me as a JSON array or as a simple text file. And then down here, you can also provide some examples on the type of documents that this model should expect to receive. So in this case, we're saying an example of an input could be you'd receive a first name, a last name, and a residence. It could be 2 pages of OCR text to extract. You can see the first name and last name here. You can see that they reside in Canada. And then the example of an output that we would want to see is an array of JSON here where you see the last name attribute followed by the actual value. All right, we see our country of residence attribute followed by the value as Canada. All right, so now that we've created our template, here's where we're defining the output that we want to receive. So in this case, we're saying we want to extract information from an invoice. And the attributes we want to receive from that invoice are customer address, name, the date, the ID, and a list of other attributes that we also just saw in the original PDF that I had open earlier. The other cool thing that you can do is you can provide hints in plain English to your model. So if you want to tell your model, traditionally in our invoices, you'll find this attribute on the top right section of the page, or you'll find this attribute on page 7, normally followed by a list. You're able to provide hints to better assist the model and equip it to receive and retrieve successful results from your document. Now, if I go back to my job status table and do refresh here, you'll see that that document has completed successfully, and it only took just about 21 seconds to process through and through and extract the results. Now we can take a look at what it actually derived. In my output folder, you see the original PDF that I submitted, and you'll also see a file here, in this case a JSON file, which is what we had requested, and this JSON file contains all of the extracted attributes that I just walked you through in the previous pages. So now we can take a look at how it did. Down here, you're seeing all the elements that were extracted from this document. So we have the customer address here, which it pulled successfully from ships to. And also what I want to call out here is even though we asked for the customer address, the model had the knowledge to understand that even though this isn't directly labeled customer address and instead it's labeled as ship to, it still had the intelligence to pull the correct attribute. Right? We have our customer name, which is another example. In the document, it's listed as bill to, but once again, it looks like we were successfully able to pull the correct name of the customer. And similar to the last two examples, you'll also notice that the invoice ID here is not marked as invoice ID. It's rather just marked with the number sign followed by the ID. And once again, our model was able to have the intelligence to successfully pull out 24210 as our invoice ID. Okay, let's scroll down now and let's take a look at the meat of the invoice here. So as I mentioned, OCR text reads from left to right, meaning if you see me drag my cursor across the page here, it's going from left to right. And if I want to drag down to the multi-line text, it's still going to go from left to right and grab this text over here as well. However, our model was able to successfully pull the item description as Belkin router, Bluetooth accessories, and then it grabbed everything in that second line as well. So we have accessories, technology, and then we have this code here as well. And if you look on the right side of the screen, you'll see a couple of the other attributes that we were able to pull from our document, all of those attributes that you saw us define on the output definitions page over here within our invoice output definition section.